Hi guys, what is going on, and welcome back to another video on Conqueror's Blade. So today we're going to be taking a look at the Imperial Muskets. So I actually did do a video on these guys quite a while ago. Wow, I need to top up my unit kits. But finally sort of came back around to them, finished leveling them off to kind of the max level, tried them again, and really been enjoying them. Kind of wanted to talk a little bit as well. Not only is it it's not completely random video, but it seems there's kind of been some fair changes to the muskets in the Season 5 sort of patch. They seem to actually have a lot more intelligence in terms of their aiming, particularly when using the sort of directional aim. They don't just sort of blast away into thin air, they can actually aim up and down now, so they can shoot off walls a lot better, but they also seem to actually aim at people along the wall, so a little bit more like how a longbow works. In terms of that targeting an area. So much nicer to see this kind of as an improvement. Definitely a step in the right direction. Muskets feel like they function a lot better than they used to before. So obviously it's kind of no secret that I kind of like the Kriegs and I kind of like the Tercios, and generally I prefer my Tercios over my Imperial Arquebusiers. Although arguably I guess Kriegs are perhaps the comparison, but considering Kriegs and Tercios are fairly similar in playstyle in many ways, then kind of clump them into one sort of unit effectively. A lot of the criticism that's levied against the Imperial Arquebusiers by others, and actually has been traditionally by myself as well, is that the accuracy on these guys really isn't up to much, and that's kind of one of the big drawbacks. And okay, the accuracy isn't great, but actually the more I've been playing them, it really isn't that bad either. It kind of just sort of a bit of a, not an untrue fact, but yeah, the accuracy is quite good. Really, even at fairly distant ranges they seem to hit pretty well, and at close ranges they pretty much land every shot, so that's really not a problem. Obviously these guys then have significantly higher DPS than both the Kriegs and the Tercios. They have higher base piercing and piercing AP and piercing damage, which gives them that higher base damage. So you see that when you're just doing auto attack and using the one button to sort of directional attack. But then of course they also have volley fire. And that hits really hard. You know, you could be critting up to almost 6k with a volley fire shot. You actually get a crit value there. But, you know, you're getting that 24% increase to volley fire damage, as well as like heavy bullets and things. You also get a bit of a block break on this final one. Not super effective, but as you'll kind of see in some of the battles, it does hit through some of the enemy's blocks, so it can be quite effective. The problem I have with Tercios, and we'll probably cut to just a very little short clip of this now, is that Imperial Arquebusiers, sorry, is that they are weak. They have, what, 400 piercing defense and only 3,600 hit points. When you compare that to a unit of Tercios, let's actually compare that. You'll see your 8,500 hit points to 720 piercing defense. That means when the enemy shortbow hero, the enemy longbow hero starts picking shots at your Tercios, it actually takes them quite a long time to kill one. And it gives you quite a lot of time to reposition your unit, get out of the way, change location, find some shields to shelter behind, or just simply move. And the unit will be fine because they don't die very easily because they have a large hit point pool and good ranged defense. It's also true against enemy archers. These Imperial Arquebusiers, though, are a lot more vulnerable. As soon as you start getting shot at by an enemy ranged hero, you know, it's one hit or sometimes two hits to kill from a longbow and a couple of hits from a shortbow. And it just means the unit can be picked apart really quickly. It's also true with enemy range. You know, if you start getting hit by archers, longbows, etc., go down really fast. And that, for me, is the big downside of the Imperial Arquebusier compared to the Tercios. And that's what makes them less consistent, in my opinion. Tercios, because they're so strong, you can sort of do reasonably well in every game with them. I find them to be much more consistent. The Imperials are less consistent, but they do, in the right situation, they have that higher DPS, quite significantly so, and obviously more models in the unit. It means that in the right situation, they can do better than the Tercios. So I guess that's maybe the part of the comparison to do between the two. Higher damage and weaker, so probably less consistent for the Imperials. Less damage, much stronger unit, much more consistent, but less of those sort of really crazy games that perhaps you'll get with these Imperials. But that's just kind of been my experience with them so far anyway. But anyway, let's hop into a battle with them now. Kind of see how we've been going on and see what they're like a little bit in action. So, not long into our battle in Sun City, just got the first siege tower up and just waiting for the team to get a little bit established so I can drag these guys up and immediately set them into volley fire, shooting into what's left on this flat. I mean, immediately you see kind of the damage hits they get really quite high. Really kind of a good initial bit of damage, up to 11 kills already, kind of keeping that push going. As with kind of Tercios I would play in the same sort of way, fairly aggressive. You know, when you start to get any sufficient distance like this, you start to drop off in terms of your damage potential. So I tend to push up and try and keep them fairly front line, particularly when you actually have friendly shield units like this helping as well. And that was nice. That enemy hero does snapshot heroes quite well when you get this sort of situation. And we see again here, hero comes round, boom, one shot, instantly gets hit. You know, remember you're hitting that hero for sort of 3,000 or 4,000 damage per shot, so that does a lot awfully quickly. We see the enemy range unit, so I get myself set up in volley, and you see sort of the sort of hits we're hitting in volley, like sort of 3,000 to 5,000, really quite high, and that shows what that potential is. Like the damage potential of this unit in volley fire is really high, and that sort of harks back to what I was saying at the start, that the actual DPS, the actual damage per second of these guys is higher than both Tercios and Kriegs. You're just sacrificing your strength and making yourself more vulnerable in doing so, and that's kind of the trade-off that you have to make in these sort of things. So I'm continually pushing along the wall looking for my next opportunity. You may hear me occasionally mumbling slightly in the background because I forgot to turn my microphone off when I recorded this bit of footage, so you'll hear me sort of occasionally mumbling. But I set myself up on the top of these stairs shooting hopefully into the back here. Actually, you'll see occasional shots you do get into the back of the shields. I think the highest I saw was just over 7,000. Really quite impressive. Obviously you're getting that damage modifier for hitting in the back. But I wasn't super pleased with the positioning. The units, obviously a lot of the units are just hitting the wall. You're getting a few shots over but not all that many. So I was kind of thinking, can I reposition myself maybe around here and shoot over here a little bit better? But without a gap in the wall it's kind of hard to do. And the unit just doesn't really seem to like standing really close together on the edge of the wall. They just sort of naturally seem to space themselves back out into 3 lines, and actually makes it kind of hard to hit, even though we do get some hits. But I was running out of ammo, and without that supply point, I've got to make what little ammo I've got left last for quite a while yet. So I decide, okay, let's leave it and push on to the B point, see if we can help the capture there, and maybe with B point gone we can then start to pressure that supply point a little bit easier. I noticed these serfs, or woodcutters or whatever they are, stood on the stairs, threw the unit up, and this is kind of what a good example of how the AI's changed. I couldn't get the aimer to aim directly at them, so I aimed off to the right, yet the volley still aims and shoots at the middle of the unit on the stairs. So even though I'd aimed the fire 5 meters to the right, the muskets themselves saw that the enemy wasn't to the right and actually aimed at the actual target and fired. So that's really nice, really positive change for muskets. They actually feel so much more intelligent than what they did before. So definitely kind of a step in the right direction there. So with them dead, wasn't really much left on the B point. Just pushing up, getting the capture, drag my unit up with me. And now I'm really starting to think, okay, we need to get some ammo. But in the meantime of us capturing the B point, it looks like either the enemy abandoned the supply or our team gave it a really good push and actually cleared off and captured the supply. So that's really got to be my next stop. Not that the ammo on these Imperials is bad, they actually feel like they last quite a long time. I mean, particularly when you compare it to something like the Kriegs, it's really, really high, but, still runs out eventually. I was a little bit hesitant there looking at those Keshigs, an enemy unit of Keshig moving around. You've got to be really careful. Your musket volley should, in theory, stop a Keshig charge. In an ideal world, it doesn't always. Obviously, a Keshig charge is very, very fast, so you have to be really quick on the snap fire if that's going to happen. So that's why I was being a little bit nervous about kind of keeping an eye on what that cav was doing. And I was kind of continually trying to check the minimap at this point because I know there's sort of Keshigs on the prowl, and getting a rear charge and a nice unit of muskets is something they would certainly enjoy. So that's kind of what I'm looking out for. But then as we come around here, obviously C point is the area we've got to be targeting next. Trying to sort of look and pick my target. So we've got a unit of shields here, just fire a volley into that. Shows kind of what damage we get going through there. And then I'm sort of continually pushing up, looking for my opportunity on these enemy units, kind of around this corner. I struggle to actually get some hits here. I do put them into volley fire, but we're largely just hitting the wooden shield there. But we occasionally get a few shots to land around the corner and do a little bit of damage, but by and large, not all that much. It's not until they actually push out and start to do the Imperial Pike advance can we actually start to hit a bit better. And then we start to see sort of the kills rolling in a little bit more because they've got a much cleaner line of sight. I start to get myself a little bit stuck in as well. A lot of these are the new shield unit we're dealing with, so they're a very, very tanky unit. We kind of push them into the corner and try and finish them off. I then quickly notice from the guards behind me, Keshigs are getting lined up for the charge. Whether this is the right thing or not, I could have stayed and tried to sort of hold and try and get that volley fire off and hope that it stops the charge. But I'd seen them and had the potential to move, and you know, it definitely kept my unit alive. So I didn't want to sacrifice my unit trying to stop the charge, so I moved. Perhaps not the best thing to do. Maybe I should have stayed and tried to hold and defended the back of the team. But kind of a tough one in that sort of situation. I didn't want to sacrifice my unit, that was the problem. So at this distance, shooting at the unit of archers, you see we kind of struggled. We landed one hit there out of a volley. Move ourselves that little bit closer, and just that extra little bit distance, and we're still at quite a long range, and you can see we're actually starting to get hits now. You know, you can see we're landing in hits, and because the damage is so high, you know, if you hit an enemy archer for 3,000 damage, generally speaking, they're going to die. So you kill Namkhans generally in one shot with this unit. And that goes to show the range on them is quite good. You can hit at that sort of distance. So that kind of works quite nicely, so I was quite pleased with that. And then kind of looking up here, I see that on the mini-map there's something moving in the north. I thought it was cavalry initially, which was a bit hesitant. But as we kind of push over, it's actually just a unit of serfs. I don't know what they were doing over this side of the map, looking for a flanking opportunity or something, I guess. So I just decided to just chase them down on my horse. Kill what I can. It seemed rude not to, really, since they were sort of uncontrolled and just on the run. But there is quite a bit of stuff heading to the supply point to defend it. Now that did kind of flummox me a little bit. Which way do I want to go? Come here, quickly try and snap fire this cavalry. Bang, we actually get a bit of hits. Not too bad there. So I was kind of pleased with that. They do snap fire quite well. But then I'm thinking coming in from the top way is probably safest. I'm a bit nervous about the existing cav that's there, which is why I'm not yet volley firing. You know, they've obviously got the potential to charge back out. Even with only sort of 5 or 6 models left, they could do quite a bit of damage. Which is why you see me sort of going, cavalry. But they decide to pull themselves back in, and they never really make the push that I thought they would. So eventually I grow in confidence, get myself properly set up, line up and properly set up a volley fire. And then you'll see we actually do quite a chunk of damage against enemy shields. With that block break, it actually doesn't do too bad. You can see that we hit, I don't know, not every shot, but maybe 1 in 3 shots, something like that, penetrates the shield and does damage. But because you're hitting quite hard, it does actually mean you rack up a reasonable number of kills. And we are slowly starting to decimate the shield unit. With the allies then sort of helping with the push, we're just sort of slowly growing in confidence, slowly whittling down the unit on the supply, inflicting more and more losses. And then eventually we can sort of get in. And as we get in and start to knock the shields down, our muskets can really then sort of apply their damage a lot better. And you kind of see that your damage starting to rack up and the kills starting to come in. And you keep seeing sort of the 3,000 hits and everything keep coming in, and even against these very heavily armoured units. So it shows that penetration really puts itself to work in this sort of situation. Really very, very effective. So, they're dead, looking good. Healing myself up on the supply point, thinking about where next. Obviously I'm going to go into that sort of citadel thing at the back of the capture point, and then hopefully I can sort of work my way around, either sort of frontally or just sort of round to maybe the right hand side, see if I can make my round around and start applying a little bit of pressure on the cap point there. So we got healed up, good to see the rest of the teams advancing as well. It's nice to have plenty of support, particularly with these guys. They are kind of vulnerable if they've not got support. Trying to stay with shields and friendly units really is critical, far more so than Tercios, because you're that much weaker and more vulnerable. So as we kind of push around, quite a few artillery stuff being built. I noticed there's a little bit of stuff down to the right enemy hero. I was trying to kind of repeat what I did earlier. We sort of do, we get a lot of damage on, but unfortunately it's actually not enough to really secure the kill because we're just a little bit too far away. But again, kind of shows, even at that sort of range, you can actually hit reasonably reliably and put quite a bit of damage out. So we kind of pushing along here, quite happy. I was going to go to the end. I saw the pikes coming in. I quickly try and snap volley fire. They actually turn around. We get a few hits in, but it shows how quickly these guys set up into volley fire formation and start firing. Really quite effective. I'm kind of impressive that they can do that. As we come out, there's actually really quite a lot of stuff around these corners. So start firing to that. But because there's a fence there, it's kind of hard to really apply that much damage. Because a lot of our shots are landing into the fence, you know, hitting the obstacles rather than actually flying into the archers behind them. And we are taking a little bit of damage in the process, because those Namkhans are firing back at us. So I kind of decided I'm not really happy with this. Let's move around. I feel like they were going to get the upper hand and start killing me more soon. I'd come like a bit closer in and still trying to clip the edge of some of the enemy archers. After these ASAPs retreat from us, trying to clip some of these enemy archers here. I didn't think it was worth it. A model gets killed. I'm thinking, no, let's just get myself properly into cover. Push myself around the corner. And then we're waiting basically for these shields to move up. We get delayed a little bit by these Martellatori. We actually kind of do a fair job of cannon fodder in that situation. I'm just waiting for our friendly shields to move, and when they make their move, that gives me the opportunity to line up. Oh, and this is the dream. A corridor full of lightly armoured targets I can volley into. Set up for the volley, and look how quickly we build up kills here. We just really cut down everything stood down in this alleyway here. Really, really effective. Loving myself until I see the unit of Hazap starting to come up from behind and thinking, oh no, now I'm in trouble. I should have tried to run through the unit. I decided to make a stand just to try and do as much damage as we can. Thankfully, we do at least kill the enemy short sword player, but unfortunately we pretty much lose the bulk of the unit. And we do kill quite a chunk of the Azaps. I mean, the unit is actually still just about fighting on, still fighting, still getting some kills, but unfortunately I get myself killed, and the unit's kind of now on its own. It still racks up 1 or 2 more kills, just sort of firing away with what it can. I think maybe some of our allies turned round to actually kind of help protect the unit and sort of keep it alive. But unfortunately, that spells our end. But we were able to get some 160 odd kills with the Imperials. And I think in that sort of situation you see how they can work so well. You know, we were protected by teammates most of the way. Plenty of shields for us to hide behind and make use of. Really good advancing by the team, which meant I had sort of a lot of support all the way along. And that's really, really important in this sort of situation. I think as soon as you find a game where the support is less shields, you're fighting more on your own, or you're more outnumbered, then that's where I think the Tercios come into their own a lot more, because you know, you have that much better potential for staying alive, much increased survivability. You know, and if you get killed early on with the Imperials, it doesn't matter how good their damage per second is. If you're dead, you're dead. And that's where Tercios, I think, more have their niche and hopefully staying alive. Anyway, that's all I've got time for today. Hopefully you've kind of enjoyed the video. If you have, do let me know what you think in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel for lots more Conqueror's Blade content. Thanks for watching, guys, and I shall see you all on the next video.
Yes, Commander. Keep formation. Advance. Fully fire.